Hello, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today I'm here to share with you how I break down my goals. If you've been around, you know that one of the biggest tips I give when it comes to goal setting is that you need to break things down into smaller steps, because the smaller the step, the more likely you are to actually do it. And once you do one step, it is so much easier for you to keep going and use that momentum to do all the other steps. But one of the biggest questions that I get is, well, how do I do that? How do you break down your goals into smaller steps? So that's what I'm gonna teach you today. And this process can work for any type of goal that you have. I'm gonna give you 2 examples of goals that I've set in the past and kind of how I broke those down, but you can apply this process to really any goals. The main focus that I have when I'm working on breaking down my goals is I need to get it to a point that it is something I can schedule in my planner. I need to break it down to a small enough action step that I can actually put it in my planner as something I'm going to actually do. Because if I set an overarching goal, like one of my examples is the Plan with Laken event. So the overarching goal was to schedule an event. If I just put that in my planner, I would look at it and I would be like, no, that's a lot of work and that's too much. There's no way I'm gonna do that. And I wouldn't even try. I wouldn't even start. So what I have to do is take that goal and break it down into smaller steps and then put those steps into my planner. Because at the end of the day, if I don't schedule it, I won't do it. So the way that I like to start is I grab a blank piece of paper. And what I did last year was I did all of this on separate blank pieces of paper and then I put them all onto one like giant mind map for my yearly goals. But when I did multiple drafts. So I start with one blank piece of paper and I put the name of the goal in the middle of the paper. And again, it could be something really specific like Plan with Laken event, or it could be something really vague like working on my health goals. The next thing that I'll do is brain dump basically any ideas that I have related to those goals. Anything that I think remotely falls into the categories related to those goals. And there's really 2 ways to tackle this depending on the goal. Some goals, like planning an event, are really more steps based. They're more of a chronological list of steps. So I'll start with like, well, what's the date gonna be? What's the location gonna be? I need to put the tickets on sale, and then I need to plan it, and then I need to execute it. And so I will start by listing kind of the overarching steps related to accomplishing that goal. Some goals, like the working on my physical health, it's really more of a category brain dump. So what are all the different categories that are associated with my physical health? It could be what I eat, it could be my fitness, it could be my sleep. And there are so many more that I could come up with, but I just get all of those ideas out of my head related to that specific goal. Then I do it again and I go to each individual step or category that I've already put down and I break it up even further. So when it comes to picking a location for the event, I need to do the research and then I need to pick one. When it comes to working on the food that I'm putting into my body, I probably should have more vegetables. I probably should have more protein. I probably should have less sugar. So I just work on the next layer of the map and what are all the different things that fall into those categories or those steps. And then I might do it again. Depending on the categories or the steps, they might need to be broken down into even smaller pieces. And this takes practice, knowing when you kind of reach the end, but I'll give you a little tip in a minute about how I kind of know that I've reached the end. But sometimes it takes multiple levels. There were some of my goals this year that I had like 4 or 5 different levels of branches coming off of that first initial goal. While I'm going through this process, I try really hard not to think about prioritization or practicality at this point. If something comes out of my head that it feels like that's not important at all, I'm still gonna get it out. If something comes out of my head that feels like it's not practical at all, I still write it down. I would rather have all the ideas written down on paper and I can go back later and cross off the ones that are not important or not practical later. But by writing it down, it might give me an idea for another thing that is practical or important. So I try to just write down all the ideas because a lot of times ideas lead to other ideas. And so I'd rather get them all down on paper and cross things out later. And then once I've broken it all down, I will go to the end of each step and I will convert it to a more actionable step and something that I can actually put into my planner. So if what I wrote down was I need to eat more vegetables, maybe the goal is to eat 1 vegetable a day, which I've done if you've watched my goals video. When it comes to the step related goals, I really get it to a point, again, that I feel like I can put it in my planner. So it feels like it's going to take some small amount of time. That amount of time is gonna be different for different people. If it's a one-time action item, I try to stay within the lines of it's going to take an hour or less. If it's a one-time thing that I need to do, it needs to be less than an hour because those are kind of the time chunks I work with in my planner. So if it's less than an hour, I don't need to break it down any further. For things that happen more frequently, it's gonna depend on what works best in your schedule. For weekly items, I, again, sometimes will work in the hourly mode, but sometimes I try to make it not take more than a half an hour. For daily, I try to make it 5 minutes. If it's something that I'm going to try to implement daily, a daily habit, I try to make sure that it's going to take less than 5 minutes. That's the small step that I'm starting with. And it just takes practice. It takes learning to break things down to a point that I actually will do them. Because if I put something in my planner that is just an overarching goal that is way too detailed, I get overwhelmed and I won't actually try. So I have to break things down to a point that it's basically impossible for me to tell myself no, because it's just that easy. It's just such an easy task to do. I'm way more likely to do things if they are easy and small and attainable. So that is how I break down my goals. I hope that this video was helpful for you. Let me know down in the comments if there's any goal that you've set that you've struggled to break down, and I'm happy to give you some ideas down in the comments on how you can maybe break those goals down. This is something I do a lot with my Patreons, especially the ones that are signed up for the texting tier. A lot of times they will say, hey, I have a goal to do this, and we'll talk through about ideas on how they can break it down. And then the next step to that is prioritizing those broken down steps and where they're gonna start. So that is gonna be it for this video. If you found it helpful, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, please click that subscribe button. I upload new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Thank you so much for watching. Happy planning.